turbulence in the relationship between Canada and the U.S. continues to drive down travel to the U.S. For the fourth month in a row, Canadians scratched the U.S. off their travel list when they could.
When it comes for vacation, I think there's other places I would rather go.
Is this hard to believe? In the peak of tourist season, the U.S. set an unprecedented record. The international airports were eerily quiet. No crowds checking in, no bustling immigration lines, and even the loudspeakers seemed unsure of their role. The once thriving flow of travelers now looks more like a deserted Zen garden. In fact, since July of last year, 10 international airlines have pulled out of the U.S. market entirely. Major airports like LAX, JFK, and O'Hare have experienced a 35% decrease in international passengers in just a year. But why? What caused this massive shift? The U.S. used to be the dream destination for tourists, but now it's become a question mark. From Europe to Asia, travelers are turning their backs. In this video, we're diving into the reasons why 10 international airlines are quietly saying goodbye to the U.S. And it's not because other places are more attractive, but perhaps because America is now too expensive, too complicated, and too unstable. Let's start by looking at the first sign of this major shift. Play Airlines, the first major sign of change. Do you remember those $99 flights from Reykjavik to Boston? Play Airlines made short trips from Iceland to the U.S. incredibly popular for young European travelers. But now, Play has completely withdrawn its U.S. flights, disappearing without fanfare. No announcements, no goodbyes, just a quiet exit from the market. By March 2025, Play Airlines, the iconic Icelandic budget airline, officially left the U.S. market. Within a year, Northern European travel to the U.S. had plummeted by more than 60%, according to the U.S. Travel Association. And experts are shocked, saying, never before have Europeans turned their backs on the U.S. like this. Many attribute this decline to the economy, but the truth goes deeper. Trust has eroded. A recent survey by the European Travel Commission found that 71% of Northern Europeans now prefer Canada or Japan over the U.S. The main reasons? Social instability, high additional costs, and concerns over the U.S. healthcare system. Isn't it surprising? What once made America stand out is now driving people away. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective helps tell the bigger story. A changing landscape for Canada and the U.S. Now let's talk about Canada, a country that used to consider the U.S. its travel backyard. In 2025, Air Canada and WestJet, two of Canada's largest airlines, dramatically reduced their flights to the U.S., cutting more than 40% of routes, especially to popular destinations like Orlando, Las Vegas, New York, and Los Angeles. For the first time in history, domestic flights within Canada have now surpassed flights to the U.S. This isn't just a temporary adjustment, it's a calculated withdrawal. Once, Canadians would flock to Florida or California every winter, but now they're turning their focus elsewhere. The numbers speak for themselves. Travel bookings from Canada to the U.S. have dropped by 53%, while domestic tours within Canada, like to British Columbia and Nova Scotia, have risen sharply. A Canadian housewife said, "We used to consider the U.S. our backyard, but now it's just not safe to travel there with kids." And it's not just about the money, it's about trust. Canadians no longer find the U.S. a welcoming, safe destination. For Canadians over 50, 69% no longer consider the U.S. a safe vacation spot. And 48% of those who visited the U.S. in the past decade say they don't plan to return in the near future. The European shift. Lufthansa and Air France's retreat. Now let's zoom in on Europe. Lufthansa and Air France, two of Europe's oldest and most respected airlines, are also adjusting their strategies. Both carriers are cutting back on flights to the U.S. by 30 to 45%, including key cities like Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, and Miami. For the first time since World War II, European airlines are prioritizing Asia over the U.S. And why is that happening? It's not because they've fallen out of love with America, but because of economic factors, social risks, and safety concerns. The U.S. dollar fluctuates wildly. Safety risks in major cities have increased, and U.S. airport fees and taxes are much higher compared to other destinations. Meanwhile, Asia offers lower operating costs, government support for tourism, and a growing middle class. The result? European travelers are now more likely to visit destinations like Tokyo, Seoul, and Delhi than New York or Los Angeles. Lufthansa and Air France are adjusting their priorities, and in the process, they're quietly reducing the U.S.'s prominence on their flight maps. What does this mean for the U.S.? It's a significant shift in global connectivity. The U.S. was once the symbol of economic and cultural exchange, but now it's losing its spot to Asia. The impact of Australia's Jetstar, a 67% drop in U.S. visitors. Now let's look at Jetstar, Australia's leading low-cost airline. For years, Australian tourists have been some of the most loyal visitors to the west coast of the U.S., flocking to Disneyland, the beaches of California, and Las Vegas. But in a surprising turn of events, Jetstar has decided to stop all flights to the U.S. In the last 18 months, the number of Australian tourists visiting the U.S. has dropped by 67%. Jetstar, a major player in Australia's aviation industry, announced the complete suspension of flights to Los Angeles, Honolulu, and San Francisco. Why? The CEO of Jetstar points to rising landing costs in the U.S., up 38%, cumbersome visa procedures, and even the possibility of discrimination at the border. Elderly travelers have also reported a lack of support at U.S. airports, and the high costs of emergency medical services have become a deterrent. It's a subtle but significant shift. Once loyal, affluent travelers are now looking elsewhere, and the U.S. is no longer the go-to destination. The U.S. Airlines retreat. JetBlue and United cuts. It's not just international airlines pulling back, U.S. airlines are making cuts too. In 2025, JetBlue ceased flights to 15 domestic U.S. airports, marking the largest domestic network reduction in its history. States like Maine, Kentucky, and Idaho now require travelers to drive 4 to 6 hours just to find a flight. JetBlue is prioritizing profitable routes and neglecting smaller states and rural areas. In 2025, United Airlines followed suit, discontinuing routes to over 30 domestic airports, including long-standing routes in places like Iowa, Missouri, and Nebraska. America is no longer the land of limitless opportunity for global travelers. From international airlines like Play, Air Canada, and Lufthansa to U.S. carriers like JetBlue and United, the retreat is real. The U.S. is losing its position as a top travel destination, not due to external forces, but because people no longer feel safe, welcome, or valued.
If you found this video insightful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more updates and content. We've got plenty more coming your way.